Hello again and welcome to the program. I am Suren. What are the possibilities that we ourselves may be the God? Because we would have created ourselves in a distant future, at a stage of evolution, where we could have interpreted time as a whole. Tokozani Mwagi once said, "We are God. That is why you will never see God, because it is us that are God." We created ourselves without being aware of it. Even if we were aware, we could never tell because we are beings. That is why God is described as a human father. We came from nothing. We were never created. We always existed, and time is a myth. We are the magic of nature. We only die in this form, but the wind will never die. The space between everything in the abyss will never die. We chose all this just to forget it, because we are God, and got to have all the things and situations to contain our experience. Gold also came from gold, which is the land, and Gaia, and gold never becomes an old gold. God is time and infinity. We are one with God, and He is not separate from us. He can see everything through our eyes, and Satan is our default being and our wrongdoing. He too is part of us, and is just a symbol of evil God, using our feet to walk, and He is us, people, and everything in nature and the universe altogether. We call this whole existence God to communicate and to have better understanding of life and existing. We are all one. That is why you never see your face, and that is why you will never know how you created yourself. Naman Silhotras wrote, "Oh, I love to tell you this story. 2 things you need to know about me. I used to be a non-believer. I am a very fact-driven person. Well, as you know from last time, he tells all his story about how he fell in love and later he met his soulmate and got married after he has been told by a psychic that he would." Dart Raima wrote, "Not only could that be possible, but it seems pretty likely for lots of reasons." Well, think about how many minds are on Earth, and how can there be so many people on Earth with brains? Imagine if all intelligent beings were combined into one. A big bang of powerful existence. We could have used our subconscious, which may have more power and control over many things, if we became conscious in our subconscious self. Who knows what we are capable of? Memories materialize by themselves, and we are living in a memory or powerful thought, which is enough to become a reality. So, when and if, and what if we were able to take control of our subconscious, either when we die or some other way, and while we are here and right now, could be slowly learning how to do this as we speak in our current year of 2023. Maybe in like 2100, who knows what technology could do by then, even or 2200 or 23. Zsolt Herman wrote, an orthopedic surgeon who he is, well, the practical wisdom of Kabbalah is as describing a very similar scenario. We are a unique consciousness that encompasses the whole natural universe, sensing everything together as a single whole. But at the moment of its birth, this perfect single consciousness cannot actually sense itself, cannot be aware of itself, since it has no contrast or comparison it can recognize itself against. Perception of reality is based on contrast, comparison. If I do not know, could I have any idea what warmth is? Without bitter, we cannot discern the sweet. Without heat, the original love. That is the whole process of evolution. That is all about giving this single superorganism that capability to become self-aware, to become, in a sense, to sense its infinite perfection. Thus a unique simulated breakage occurs, where the consciousness perception of the originally single, unified being broken into myriads of pieces, where each piece starts sensing itself as separate, egocentric, mutually and exclusively competing, warring entities. And the process of evolution is about to gradually collect and reconnect those pieces above and against this egocentric incompatibility, rejection, in order to re-establish the original state. At the end, nothing changes except the self-awareness of the perfect single consciousness. Since by going through the experience of the breakage and reconnection against resistance, through the gained dynamic contrast, now it knows exactly what it is, what its purpose is. It senses life through the infinite tastes, viewpoints, gained from the myriad of elements comprising it. Did we create our own reality, or did God? Question mark. John Desmond, MS, CCC/SLP, wrote, both. Our relationship with reality, like many important relationships, is reciprocal. For example, when I prepare my famous bubble and squeak dish, it is, false modesty aside, a master of full collaboration between me and my dish. To begin, a light brush of fresh olive oil over the vegetable brings out the rich, vibrant colors of a varied array of produce from my garden. It is truly beautiful to behold as it hits my preheated skillet, emitting a lovely symphony of sizzle as a divine aroma sets my juices flowing. Now, for the spuds. When the potatoes combine with my vegetables and heated oil, they begin to undergo metamorphosis, turning a golden brown as they defy my weight-conscious guests to avoid them. Done and plated, the feast is on, and it's freaking delicious. So, who created the dish? Well, I kind of did, but without the inspiration, encouragement, and feedback from the dish, the bubblant, squeaks, component parts would remain laid on the bottom shelf of the pantry behind the spaghetti. A spiritual Hindu, Kamal Palas, wrote, "It is something like a god created a software which in human language called nature, universe, natural laws, which makes you choose from 4 options for every question, problem, individual encounter. These 4 options regarding probably thousands of questions refer to 4 types of reality, each with its own thousands of variations you can choose from. And you can get the results as you answer the questions, as per logic or emotions and beliefs you follow. You are very likely to choose one of 4 realities that nature is divided into. Brahma, laws, nature, universe, with its forehead, each giving you different options, as per the list of answers you have already given. It is likely you get one of these realities as your ultimate achievement or destination. You join in 1. Living things, elements, sun, planets, stars, etc. 2. Living beings, animals, insects, and so forth, including humans. 3. Or you join immovable living things, such as plants and trees. 4. You achieve God as parents or godhood. You see, the first 3 or 4 is like merging with God, because the universe, the laws, nature is an independent God itself. Especially the God of number 1, who likes objective truth through logic and evidence and does not believe in conscious God. The 4th is not merging with main creator God, but merging with organization of God, and not Jehovah's Witnesses, and still keeping your individuality and togetherness with, I suppose, intact and conscious creator God as different being and as parents. This type of liberation comes along with memories of human births, and other 3 are without any such past life memories, or even without consciousness, except in case of human. This will happen as per the spiritual conditions of individual when she or he is being liberated from the cycle of birth and death, after paying or taking all the karmic debts. Until then, you keep reincarnating as human only, individuals as per their spiritual mindset at the time of liberation, and not now. They will take up on one of these divisions of reality. It is like individuals who would think something to be a reality, and they will find that they were correct, and God have created all the possibilities. they can think that reality is like. Two people who think of reality contradictory to each other would both be correct and find the reality as they thought it to be. It will look like to the looker. Who can see this happening, as God have fulfilled their wish of finding their beliefs correct? So, what we can understand from this is that from the human perspective, it looks like as if human is creating their own reality. From God's eyes perspective, it looks like individuals choosing one of the reality as the right one, even if all the possibilities are right, because God is omnipotent and can make everything correct. I hope I have answered the question, he says. Murari Das says, everything that exists has always existed, but the source of everything is infinite. Infinity does funny things to the mind, because the mind is finite. So, while the concept can be grasped, the reality cannot. Because the source of everything is infinite, then he knew something can be eternally manifest from the source without the need to create anything. It already exists, but may not be manifest. Kanda Sami says, what is true? God made us, or we made God? Question mark. Nothing in the universe forms on its own. Everything requires a creator, which we call God. This creator does not necessarily need to be a living being. It could be a situation, climate, time, or something else entirely. The creator's role is simply to initiate creation, and from there things develop on their own. In the same way, the creator, or God, made us, and we continue to evolve and improve on our own. How could humans have evolved and still be in the image of God? A good question. Evolutionary creationists believe that God created humans in his image, and that God created humans using natural processes that scientists describe as evolution. How can these beliefs work together? The precise meaning of the image of God, or imago Dei in Latin, has been debated for centuries in the Church. It can relate to our unique cognitive abilities, to our spiritual capacity for a relationship with God, to our commission to represent God's kingdom on earth, or to some combination of these. All of these interpretations may be consistent with the scientific evidence for evolution. Along with all Christians, we affirm that the image of God is foundational to Christian thinking about human identity and sanctity of life, stewardship of creation, bioethics, and other topics. Many people assume that evolution is not compatible with the belief that humans are created in the image of God. Does it not image bearing require miraculous creation of humans rather than shared biological ancestry with other creatures? When the evolution happened, did humans attain this image? That's another good question. These questions are tied to many other issues concerning human origins, including the soul, the fall, and historicity of Adam and Eve. But in this article, we focus specifically on the meaning of the image of God. Image of God in scriptures. Let's briefly look at them. The phrase image of God does not appear many times in the Bible, but the importance of the concept is emphasized by its repetition in the Genesis 1 account of creation. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. Genesis chapter 2, verses 26 and 27. From this text, it is clear that both males and females bear God's image, and the stated purpose for why God makes mankind in his image is so that they may rule over the animals. Genesis chapter 9, verses 5 and 6 reveals another aspect of image bearing. All human life is sacred because all humans are made in the image of God. The emphasis in the Christian thought on the sanctity of human life is driven in part from this passage. In the New Testament, the idea is expanded further as Christ is revealed as the true image of the invisible God. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, 4 and Corinthians 1 to 15. For centuries, theologians have discussed these and other passages, debating the meaning of the image of God. Here we can discuss three common interpretations and consider how these ideas intersect with evolution. Image of God as our cognitive abilities. One view is that the image of God refers to uniquely human cognitive abilities. When people talk of the things that make us human, they often refer to abilities like a reason and rationality, mathematics and language, laughter and emotions, caring and empathy, and cultural products like music and art. Theologians have historically connected image pairing with humankind and parallel capacity for rational thought. St. Augustine, 354 to 430 AD, wrote, "Man's excellence consists in the fact that God made him to his own image by giving him an intellectual soul, which raises him above the beasts of the field." St. Thomas Aquinas, 1225 to 1274 AD, emphasized intellect and rationality in his discussion of image bearing. Some people today challenge whether there is a substantial difference between cognitive abilities of humans and other animals. Studies of animals' behavior, particularly of chimps and other apes show that animals not only laugh and cry and care for each other, but can learn sign languages and even have basic reasoning ability. But while some of these similarities mean that humans are just another animal, a strong case can be made for human distinctiveness from a host of disciplines, and often by scholars who have no obvious religious motivations. We might even say that, from a scientific point of view, we differ in kind and not just a degree from other species. Kevin Leyland, professor of behavioral and evolutionary biology at the University of St. Andrews, writes, 100 years of intensive research has established beyond the reasonable doubt what most human beings have been forced into all along. The gap is real. In a number of key dimensions, particularly the social realm, human cognition vastly outstrips that of even the cleverest non-human primates. The often misunderstood part of this claim for human distinctiveness is that the capacities that set us apart from other animals, morality, reason, language, culture, and so on, are dependent upon other components of behavior and even brain structures that have evolutionary stories. This explains why we find hints or precursors of them in other species. Nevertheless, the gap between modern humans and other species is real. And another challenge for this interpretation of the image of God is the status of people with mental disabilities. If a person is impaired in reasoning or language, are they bearing less of God's image? Question. Are they not showing his true likeness? The Christian answer to these questions is a resounding no. The Bible repeatedly teaches that God values all people, particularly those who are rejected by society or unable to care for themselves. In fact, Genesis chapter 9, 5 and 6 points to the image bearing as the reason that all human life is valuable. This is a major motivator for Christians who seek to protect the unborn, the poor, and the aged. This challenge may be addressed in part by recognizing that the image of God was bestowed in Genesis 1 on humanity as a whole. It may not be property of individuals per se, but of the whole human family. Image of God is our spiritual capacity, apparently. Another common view is that the image of God refers to our capacity for a relationship with God. Following Thomas Aquinas' view of aptitude for understanding and loving God, the Catholic Catechism says, according to John Calvin, 1509 to 1564, and other reformers, wrote of the image of God as the original righteousness of humans before the fall. When first created, we reflected God's wisdom, righteousness, and goodness, but, as Paul teaches, that image was tarnished by sin and is being restored in Christ. In his commentary on Genesis, Calvin writes, Since the image of God had been destroyed in us by the fall, we may judge from its restoration what it originally had been. Paul says that we are transformed into the image of God by the gospel. And, according to him, spiritual regeneration is nothing else than the restoration of the same image. Neuroscientists have looked for evidence of such things as selfless behavior or the ability to perceive the transcendent. But science is simply not capable of fully testing such spiritual realities. The evidence that scientists do find is open to many interpretations. Wayne Herbert, an atheist, on the other hand, says, that is the big problem in believing in a God as the creator of all things. Sure, it solves the problem of where did the universe come from. But as you have noticed, all it does is to kick the can down the road, because now you can, in fact, to have to ask the question, where did God come from? The fact is, we have no idea where we are. Why do universe exists? Why we have evolved enough to be able to know the universe exists? We are on a tiny blue dot of our planet in a universe that is incomprehensibly large. It's a mystery of life, and it is amazing. Saying God did it answers nothing. Enjoy the fact that we are hairless, talking apes, hurtling through the universe on an organic spaceship. A former teacher asked this question: if God created us, who created him? If God created us, such a being would have no need to have been created. God sees beyond what we can comprehend, and just because we are potentially free thinking does not mean we can comprehend everything. I would imagine that we could not, no more than an imagined intelligent line on a page could comprehend as fair. However, as I said above, we are developing, and some would say we are moving to a different existential status altogether to become gods of some sort. A software test engineer says, if God created the universe, who created God? If he simply exists without creation, can't this same argument to be made about the universe? Question mark. It exists without creation. One argument I hear all the time is that nothing can exist without a prime mover, a God. The argument is based on a false assumption that the universe is a creation. They will argue that anything created has to have a creator. Your question is a perfect argument against that belief. If a creation needs a creator, then who created God? If some other God created God, then who created that God? On and on we go. Let us entertain the idea that the universe was created by some intelligence, like a god. Would God be personally involved in each individual's life? If so, then we must conclude that he is sadistic or uncaring. He has allowed countless people to die from natural disasters, diseases, wars, murder, and accidents. This includes babies and children. He sees everything, correct? Then he must see a little girl getting brutally raped and murdered. He must see a person suffer from a disease that destroys their body, distort their mind, and kill them. Sometimes slowly. He must see people killing in his name in certain parts of the world. He causes asteroids to hit planets and other celestial bodies. He causes iron stars to explode, potentially killing life on the surrounding planets. He allegedly heals some people of sicknesses, but lets others die. It doesn't make sense. I know these will pull out the old free will card, but that is an invalid argument. First of all, free will implies that there is both good and evil. If God is good, then how did the concept of evil ever come about? Is there inequity in God? Another said, assuming God is real, who created him? Or how did he create himself? I will start this off with a disclaimer. I am an atheist and do not believe fundamentally that such a being exists. That said, let us set aside doubts for a moment and take a look at the philosophical and religious nature of God. According to the ontological argument, one of the fundamental underpinnings on which fundamentalists rely in arguing for God's existence is that to be God, there can be nothing greater than God. And if there is, that thing which is greater than God is God. The fundamental argument of religion, the very underpinnings of the God of the gaps, that the Christian God in particular has become, that God is the unmoved mover. It goes something like this. God was not created, and created the universe without himself being moved or created. If God was created, then whatever created God would be God. God could not have created himself or herself, because he or she would have to exist already to do so. And it would be a violation of the prime mover argument. It is much easier to say the universe existed without being created. Think about it. Einstein's equations produce an unchanging universe only when it is empty. So, it is possible those who predict an eventual heat death are wrong, and that the universe simply recycles itself. As an atheist, I am fundamentally happy, saying I don't know, and being satisfied with that answer, while continuing to seek the truth, rather than blaming God for what I cannot explain, and moving on. So we read. Robbie Campbell, a physics and cosmology enthusiast, says, If God created the universe, then who created God? And who created the creator of God? I always liked Asimov's answer from one of his short stories. Basically, though a work of fiction, it goes like this. Man creates an artificial intelligence that remains benevolent and assists all humanity. One day, a child is learning about thermodynamics in school and ponders the ultimate question. What happens after the universe suffers thermodynamic heat death? So he asks his computer. The reply is, sorry, I do not have enough data to answer that question. Centuries later, a family is on vacation in a distant galaxy, and the same question arises. Sort of. Family asks the computer, which has upgraded itself over the years. The reply, however, it is the same. Sorry, not enough data. The computer has been asking this question countless times and continues to attempt to calculate the answer to no avail. Finally, humanity spreads throughout the galaxy. Then the universe, using the computer with no existence of substance or another dimension outside of our space-time. Humanity exists in both physical and virtual form and uses the computer to explore our universe. Two friends meet inside the virtual world and decide to visit what was once Earth, now a dead solar system with a white dwarf at the center. The same question arises with the same answer: not enough data. Eventually the universe dwindles to the point where there is no more energy available to do work, aka maximum entropy or thermodynamic death. Using the last available energy, humanity uploads itself into the AI. As the last mind uploading, the AI continues to ponder the question, still with no answer. Years go by, and the last fundamental particles in the universe have spread so far that everything is closely disconnected. Even the black holes have evaporated, and iron stars have been disintegrated. The computer finally calculates the answer. But no one is left to provide the answer to. The computer must fulfill its programming and provide this answer to mankind. So, the computer says, let there be light. Happiness ultimately comes from a combination of factors, including common sense and spiritual beliefs. Both can contribute to a fulfilling life. Common sense helps to navigate daily challenges and make sound decisions, while faith can offer a framework for understanding and finding joy in the face of adversity. Let's look at it in a more detailed sense, shall we? What does really common sense present? Practicality and common sense involves making sound judgments and acting rationally based on available information. problem solving. It helps us identify problems and develop effective solutions. Decision making. It guides us in making choices that align with our values and goals. Well-being by promoting good habits and healthy relationships. Common sense can contribute to overall well-being. Faith and happiness. Meaning and purpose. They can provide a sense of meaning and purpose, which can be a powerful source of happiness. Hope and resilience. Faith can help individuals cope with difficult situations and develop resilience. Community and support. Religious communities can offer a sense of belonging and support, which can enhance happiness, as with Sufism. Gratitude and contentment. Faith can encourage practices like gratitude and contentment, which can lead to greater happiness. In conclusion, neither common sense nor any faith is a magic bullet for happiness. Both play important roles in shaping a fulfilling life, and individuals may find that a balance between them is most conducive to their well-being. A short while ago, I read an article about someone writing thus: "I wish I could believe in God, but my common sense does not let me. I believed in God until about 3 years ago. It was a long time coming through. I had been having doubts and questions until one day I realized I needed to stop living or lying to myself. Pretty much my whole family believes in God, but I have been trying to look more into other things and see if I could get back to believing, but I just cannot." Somebody else wrote, "A God requiring me to renounce my intellectual honesty is not worth my worship." There's a point. Yet another question was asked: can we be happy without God? And the answer given was, listen, living apart from God, ? Atheists will affirm yes and preach that man doesn't need a fairy tale God to be happy. However, there have always been disastrous consequences for living without God. When men and women decide to reject God and instead serve self, it is sooner or later ends in unhappiness and tragedy. And another question was, can we find happiness without God? And the answers came was, getting to know God through His Word, the Bible, would help such an understanding. I'm unsure about the confusion in answering such a question. However, can we find happiness without God? Probably Luther M. Pratt can answer that next time. Let's consider the next question: how to be happy? Be honest with yourself and believe you are going to try your best to become happier. If you believe that atheists are generally unhappy, and if you are also an atheist, you may act in ways that reinforce your belief by possibly making you unhappy. To avoid self-fulfilling prophecies, try to change your belief that atheists are generally unhappy with. Ask yourself questions like, is it logical that someone needs to believe in a particular religion to be happy? When am I most happy? Is it when I'm thinking about religion? Or is it when I'm doing fun things, hanging out with friends, thinking deeply, taking in nature? Embrace your atheism if you are one, and recognize the reasons you have chosen to be an atheist. The same goes for Christians, or Buddhists, or Hinduists. Mental reaffirmation will build confidence in yourself. Changes made you who you are for others. Is this surefire way to become less and have less self-worth? So if you truly don't believe there is any God or supernatural being overseeing the universe, stick with it despite any persecution that may come your way. There are stereotypes out there that the atheists are bad people, that they have no moral compass, and that they are unhappy. To counteract this, think about some happy atheists that you know of. If you do not know any, think about some famous atheists who seem to be pretty happy though, such as Richard Dawkins. To see a happy atheist, watch the news, read and discover that you can. Same goes with other religions. Here is something to get along with people of any religion. Well-organized religion is an institution with many clear flows. There are also good aspects. So respect people's choices regarding their beliefs. It may be as simple as the music associated with that religion or belief system. Some people have found their religion offered them comfort, community, and morals, and this can be extremely meaningful to them. Connecting with people for happiness and stress reduction, depending on where you are, even being an atheist can mean losing one's friends or even family. This may have been in similar ways as with Jehovah's Witnesses. I have experienced it. Therefore, it is better to replace lost social connections with new ones. Join the like-minded community who you can socialize with. It can be a human group, or an atheist group, or some other group that is entirely associated with beliefs and values. Be generous and show that when you give to others, your happiness increases and you don't need to believe in any gods. You can choose to give your time or your money, if you like. What matters most is that you are providing a benefit to someone else that makes them happy. And in doing so, you will be happier too. We discover also that there is a bi-directional relationship between the facial muscles and feelings of emotion. Make yourself smile often, and you might just feel a little happier, regardless of your religious beliefs. You can set a reminder on your telephone to remind yourself to smile often. You could set a reminder for every 2 or 3 hours, if you like, throughout the day to remind yourself to smile. You could have it say something simple like, "Are you smiling right now?" When encountering religious people, avoid arguments and conflicts if the conversation is very important to you. It may be best to let it go. Go for a run or go to a gym and do some resistance training for 30 minutes. Working out. Your body can improve your mood. Spend time on your loved ones and your friends. Surround yourself with a supportive community that will help you feel energized and happy. It is said, don't wear your beliefs on your sleeves, and respect all. Find constructive issues to do with your time that you enjoy. Give your family assistance for attending a church meeting if it is so, if they are so inclined. It's a personal choice, and only you can decide for what is good. Selecting a religion is no one else's business. If they open this issue, and sometimes they may do so, if necessary, tell them that you are not happy in discussing your beliefs in public with others. If you are confronted with ugliness or hostility for what you believe, and it's not productive for anyone to argue about, just let go, or even leave. Keep smiling and be happy. We will meet you again by our next episode. Thank you.